Thank you, Your Worship. On that same page, I would like to make a motion with respect to item 2. And the motion has been sent to our administrative or legislative assistant, so I'm pretty sure it will be on the screen. So I move that intergovernmental strategic priority number 2 be amended to strike the phrase timed with the 2026 municipal election, and for staff to bring back a report to council on possible paths forward to address this strategic priority and the 11 recommendations of the joint working group, including budget, resource allocation, time requirements, and other relevant information. If there's a seconder, I'll speak to it. Thank you.
Good, Southcott.
So basically, this has worried me for some time because the item states that strategic priority. The first part of it involves engaging the public on a topic of a name change. There certainly has been no lack of conversation or concern in our community, but there hasn't been any substantive engagement performed or achieved by the city for the community. It's my belief that there isn't time to really achieve that, and if paying attention to the comments here by the CAO, we are still in a situation where there's limited staff capacity. We have had more turnover in staff that would be involved with exactly this kind of work. So it isn't likely to start soon enough to really get to the point where the preliminaries within that strategic priority, as it's stated, would put us into a position of fairly being able to do a poll at a year from now anyway. So I want to make it really clear that it's only the timing that is changed. The rest of the intention of that strategic priority, according to this amendment, would be maintained. Certainly the intention, I don't personally believe that that we're ever going to get around this. We need to go through it. And so that's my reasoning for putting this forward tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've always been in support of having a comprehensive community engagement process, which we had thought we would receive outside funding for, and for a variety of reasons that didn't occur. We then tried to commit a staff position, being the intergovernmental relations person that might be able to come up with a process so that we could do this. And that position didn't get filled as of yet, and is, I think, being changed a little bit or reallocated. So I do think it's fair that we need a report from staff to see how that process could work. And we literally do not have time to sort out the budget, the process, and everything to make that timing work out. And so I think it is a good idea to decide sooner rather than later that we're not in a position to make that engagement happen in this time frame with the current staffing situation that we have and the fact that it doesn't have a line item in our budget at this point. So I'm in support of this motion.
Here we are. I've been thinking about this since I got the agenda and going through it. Actually, I've been thinking about it before that, because we back before the last election, before 2022, we appointed a group to look into the name change in response to the request from the Tla'amin Nation. They did a bunch of work, had community consultation as it was, and everybody's got their own comments on how well that reflected what the community wanted. We came up, there was a recommendation of 11 items to go through. Council has never sat down and looked at those 11 items in detail and made decisions on exactly go forward. We didn't do that, but we did get together during our strategic planning and make a motion to have an opinion poll timed with the 2026 municipal election. And I remember many delegations that came after we made that decision telling us what they wanted to see in that opinion poll, giving us ideas that maybe council was going to renege and not bother to do that at all, or put it off until some other time. But frankly, I'm not in favor of putting off the idea. I think that we could get together, we could get a report. If we have to, we hire a consultant, talk about positive ways to have community engagement. And if we at least start that community engagement with the commitment in place to have an opinion poll in 2026, we could see how that goes. We could see if we can get anywhere. I'd like to try and make a determination after we make an effort, not to simply say, well, we've decided we don't have the staff and we don't have the time and we don't want to do it right now. I think that would be abandoning our job, frankly, as a city council. So while I would like to see us do something with those 11 recommendations and start some kind of community consultation in as good a way as we can, but I don't want to start by saying we're not going to make a decision until sometime after 2027.
Councilor Bob.
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, my comments regards to this motion are going to be brief, because I don't want to find myself in the same situation I found in when I'm talking about this strategic plan prior. But I do have to say this. We settled on a process that was going to give the citizens of Powell River a voice in regards to this process. I still have of the same mind thoughts in this regard, that the public needs to be consulted. And one of the things first and foremost on my mind, if we're going to go down this road, I don't mind a report coming from staff. I mean, it's going to put a tremendous burden on staff to come up with something that everybody can live with. I can guarantee them that. However, this late hour of the last year of our term, bringing this back for further thought is not a bad idea, because we need to find a pathway forward to resolve this issue that's been brought before us. And we need to do education first and foremost, which has not been done since we passed that resolution some time ago in our strategic plan. I'm all for education. I'm all for hearing both sides of the equation and all the ramifications around that, because I don't think both sides have been totally heard up until now or at all. So starting that process of dialogue is one of the recommendations that I heard ministry people say in this building some time ago, and I second that. And then we can get to the election and give people a say with an opinion poll, which is non-binding, by the way, but it will show where the people of this community stand. So that's about all I have to say at this point, Your Worship. Thank you.
Councilor Isaacson.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that this motion is realistic. As time has ticked by over the past 3 years, my concern about the realities of taking these substantive steps in a good way has increased. And so just to be clear, the original wording of the strategic priority as it stands right now says, take substantive steps towards reconciliation with Tla'amin Nation by engaging the public on a topic of a name change, including a possible new name, leading up to a public opinion poll timed with the 2026 municipal election. So the only thing that this motion would change about that is the timing. And given Councilor Southcott referenced the staff report in the table. So what staff are saying is there are concerns regarding adequate timing remaining to undertake the necessary engagement in advance of the municipal election. I think about the time before the ballots get printed, that a question would have to be prepared, the engagement that would have to go into that, the planning or the analysis of the data, the planning of the engagement happening, stepping back, the planning of that engagement, and then engaging someone to carry out that engagement is not a short process. Not having the manager of partnerships, intergovernmental and public relations position filled at this time, probably, may not be filled till January. Managing consultants and managing staff takes time. And so I think this is realistic. It's really important for me that we haven't had motion to date, and it's important to me that motion doesn't stop. And so this continues the motion, but is quite frankly realistic. I think sometimes council has high hopes, and then we have the realities of the budget, of staff constraints, of timing, and I think this is a realistic change to the list of strategic priorities. Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Media, and then the mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Was back and forth a little bit, trying to process this motion. I appreciate Councilor Southcott making an effort to bring something to the table for discussion. I'm torn because I feel like this motion is actually two different motions put into one, and could easily be split. With the second half about the staff report being an independent motion on its own, regardless of whether the wording is removed or not from the strategic priority. And when I look at the strategic priorities, I would think the only reason to remove words at this point would be to look back on it a year from now to check off which priorities we achieved or didn't achieve. And if we are that concerned with the check marks, then we'd also have to remove the word substantive from this priority, because in 12 months, I don't think we're going to get substantive steps on this particular priority. So I think as it stands right now, I'm not in favor of this motion because I just don't feel like it's going to make the impact. I'm not opposed to the report if provided in a separate motion, although as Councilor Isaacson and staff have shared, staff time might make that a challenge, but at least if a report is requested, that would be the first step that we're actually taking on this plan. And if it means 12 months from now, we look back at this particular priority and we can acknowledge we didn't achieve it, so be it. And maybe we've taken a couple of steps, but I don't think we need to change the wording in order to make the priority a little easier to achieve.
Okay, I'm going to be aligned with Councilor Armida and Councilor Palm. Voting against this motion, I think that the citizens of Powell River have had significant number of opportunities to communicate on this issue, either through the Westview Ratepayers Association, Society, other ratepayers, a variety of different meetings that have taken place. And I think that unless our corporate officer says there is no way that we could prepare the paperwork before the next provincial election, I will vote against this motion. So I will ask our our chief administrative officer if he feels that there is still 12 months being reasonable to prepare the paperwork required to have a vote the next election.
Just for clarification of paperwork, you're meaning the stuff for the opinion poll to take place during the election. Is that what you mean by the paperwork?
Yes, what voters will see when they go to the voting booth.
So I think the challenge with that is I don't know what would go on that, and that's the whole engagement that would need to take place between now and the creation of the paperwork would be to engage the public on the possibility of a name change, including a possible new name. So to me, I just, as someone coming into the community from afar and looking into this and trying to figure out what's been done and what's substantive enough to move forward and put something on the election, I don't see it. And so that's led me to the comments that I have is that, is there time in order to get it done? Creating a question is relatively simplistic, but actually doing the background work to get to another possible name or the other, it just hasn't been done. There hasn't been any work done on it. So I want to be realistic about what we're able to achieve. And I don't think as we're currently structured that we would really have an opportunity to give it justice to what needs to be done. I've looked at the 11 recommendations that come out, and there's actually a lot. There's a lot in there. So even the report on how to address that is going to be a big undertaking moving forward. But the notion of doing a report and still trying to move forward with a poll to address Councillor Almeida's comments is completely unrealistic.
So just to follow up then, if the opinion poll was simply to state, do you support a change of the city's name of Powell River?
If council in their wisdom decided that that's all they wanted to ask, we could put that on a poll. I don't think that meets the what was intended by the council strategic priority. But again, I work for council, and if that's what you wanted to do, that's what we could move forward.
Thank you. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think what is clear is that a work plan to land an opinion poll 1 year from now is significantly different starting today than a work plan to identify a good process and what that would cost, what it looks like, what is required through a report, given everything that's gone on and where we're at today, would be a significantly lower bar and perhaps potentially possible within that year. And to shortchange the process by having an opinion poll that does not include the engagement that we require in order to get the job done is not keeping this, we're not keeping the intent of the strategic priority. So I think what would help us today is to decide, are we proceeding to have an opinion poll and pare down what we expected of that opinion poll, or are we trying to, or are we going to do a process that includes more community engagement and the groundwork required to do an opinion poll as we had stated in our original goal? So are we changing our goal or are we changing the timeline? Because we can't do both. And so this motion speaks to changing the timeline, not the goal. And so if you're not in favor of changing the timeline and you'd rather change the goal, then you would vote no on this. if you think changing the timeline is better than changing the goal, then we could do that through this motion. Thank you.
Councilor Southcott. Sorry, I didn't see that.
Councilor Southcott to go first.
This really, I just want to point out that the first phrase in this amendment does not preclude us from doing an opinion poll consequent with the next election. It just says it takes that language out. So it softens our commitment as far as Councillor Elliott, I think, just mentioned, to a timeline. If we weren't ready, we're still committed to the process, but we could delay the opinion poll. But the process is really what is primarily important to me. So I just wanted to reassure us that it is in no way a retraction of the commitment to work on this. That's my intention.
Councilor Palm.
Thank you, Worship. But Councilor Southcott, thank you for that clarification, because I was looking at that wording in terms of where we are and what we passed in a haphazard strategic plan some time ago. I'm just scratching my head going, where are we? So if the intent is simply to start the education process, why don't we say that? We don't have to go down the road of 11 recommendations and the cost factors associated with that and all the rest. We can simply get on with the education that needs to be done and hopefully bring people together and put some satisfaction in their mind that the good work is being done, which needs to be done. And then people are going to be informed and be able to make a informed decision just like we do doing our homework up here at this table. Yeah, that's it for now. Thank you.
Councilor Doat.
So, I think we're in the middle of second-time speakers right now. I don't know how many times we're going to go around, but to me, I'm not going to say the same thing I said in the first round over again. I am going to say that that language removes the priority of having a opinion poll in line with the 2026 election. It does that. Can't pretend it doesn't do that. We might decide to do it again some other time. And from the opinion of staff that they've been hearing, if we pass this motion as it is, that will be the end of it. And they'll be starting to think about how to get consultation going, maybe after the 2026 elections. That's what I see will happen. If we were talking about asking staff for a report on how and if we could go ahead with the community engagement, that would be a different thing. But we are moving the goalpost. We're changing a commitment that we made to the people of Powell River, and I don't want to do that. That's why I'm going to vote no.
Thank you. Councilor Isaacson.
Thank you, Mayor. So to address a couple of the concerns that have come up, Councillor Almeida talked about removing that language is solely so that we can, check that box at the end. I think actually what it does is it provides clarity to the public rather than draw this out over the next year. I think not knowing or not knowing how far we're going to get by the next election drags the pain out. And I think that the community deserves clarity on what's realistic. And so in supporting that first bit there, as Councillor Elliott and a few councillors have said, it does not change the goal, it just changes the timeline. And so it is about providing certainty sooner rather than later, and actually gets things started. So if we want to, I think that this here does exactly what Councillor Doubt and Councillor Palm suggest in terms of getting on with public education. We can't do that. Everything that happens starts with a plan from staff, a report where they say, hey, this is how we think we're going to go forward. Do you support this? And so everything starts with a report. This is a way for us to get moving and provide clarity to the public on what's realistic, because I think one of the more difficult aspects of all of this process is, it causes a lot of people a lot of angst, and especially around the uncertainty. And so providing a bit of certainty as to what is our next step going to be? Well, we don't feel like we're going to have time to do things in a good way before the next municipal election, but we do want to take the next step. We do want to work on education and community engagement. The first step to that is getting a report on how to address the strategic priority, which is all about public engagement. So this again provides some certainty to the public on an angst-ridden issue, and helps us take the first step. Thank you.
My closing comment is that I see no need for further education. There's been 3 years of active discussion on the issue of a non-binding vote at the next election. And if for whatever reason we are not able to put this on the next election, I'm sure that we will see the result by who's elected and their position on the name change. So to me, it's relatively insignificant whether or not this is achieved, although, as people have said, I think it's important, since we advocated to the voters of Powell River that this would happen, that it happened. So any further discussion before I call the motion? Councillor Palm.
I'm just trying to bring a little clarity to the motion here. This is very convoluted, and we're all going to be voting for different reasons in this regard because there's so much to this, so many unanswered questions in this motion. I'd like to see us defeat this motion and just put something in writing to the effect that we ask staff to bring a report to council on possible paths forward on this strategic item, and leave it at that for the time being, because we have a short period and we've heard from staff tonight. Resources and the time allotment aren't there. I'm gravely concerned. We have a lot bigger fish to fry in terms of our finances and getting our house in order to survive the next couple of years. Let's be perfectly honest here.
Okay, we have a motion. We've thoroughly discussed it. All in favor? Opposed? And the motion is defeated.